I love cartoons. My favorite cartoons, however, would have to be the eras the 1920s to the early 1930s. Why? Because they were dark. That's right. But why were they dark and creepy and weird? I have an answer. Keep in mind the times. This was during the Great Depression. A lot of people were poor, and also this is part of the Dust Bowl era. What else was happening during this time? Prohibition. So not only this was in the Depression, you couldn't even drink yourself to sleep at night. Oh my god! What are you supposed to do? Well, the answer was speakeasies. You knock on the door. Hello? What's the password? 1, 2, 3. Okay, come in. See, come in. And you will get your alcohol. What does this have to do with cartoons? Well, keep in mind, the animators back in the day probably drank a lot of alcohol. Why? Because they were adults living in a depression, and even cartoonists are humans, right? Well, what do you do in the Great Depression? You gotta do something to bend the rules a little bit. So, case in point, Dave and Max Thrasher. Now, the Thrashers were Disney's rival, and they're one of those names, even if you never heard of them, you're more likely know their properties. Betty Boop, Popeye, those old Superman cartoons, the works. So, they would reference these things, like Prohibition, by using kind of spooky imagery. Like, when they did the cartoon Minnie the Moocher, starring Betty Boop and Bimbo the dog, they would have this kind of eerie sense of humor and ghosts and all that stuff. I would link that cartoon, I'm going to link that cartoon. I want you to watch it because I feel like a lot of people nowadays don't get it. Yes, it's weird, and I can see why people think it's weird, but back in the day, this was edgy. And keep in mind the person they use for the music, which is Calloway. Calloway was part of this kind of New York scene of jazz, you know? And he was urban, dark, you know? He would sing about really he would sing about acoustic things, you know? He was pretty much up the Thrashers' game, you know? So the Thrashers showed this on the movie theaters, and the audience got it. You know what I mean? Because this was for people who did those things, broke the rules and all that stuff. So why was it spooky though? Well, like I said before, this was kind of like a spooky time. You know, you would have a Great Depression. You also can drink yourself to sleep at night. And with all of this, also breaking the rules in the first place, which drinking, which you couldn't do back then, they made these cartoons as a way to kind of deceive, but also comment on reality they were living in. Another example of a cartoon I can think of, but I can't remember the name off the bat, is the Betty Boop cartoon where her and Coco a Crown has a tooth decay, and she tries to get it out like a dentist would. So, but Coco a Crown didn't want to feel the pain, So she turned on the gas, like the laughing gas. He starts laughing, but the laughing gas spread all over the room to all over the town. Everyone started laughing. That cartoon was censored. What else was going on in the 1930s to 1920s? The Hays Code. What is the Hays Code? Censorship, basically. Censorship is a big reason why a lot of those cartoons you don't see anymore unless you buy the DVDs. These cartoons are really of their time. You get what I mean? Like, of its time. You can't see these anymore unless you buy the DVDs, or maybe you may find something on YouTube, But my point is, this is why cartoons, if you ever wonder why cartoons were creepy back then, this is pretty much why. Let me know what you think about this. I love doing history videos like this. Should I do more? Let me know.